Hello viewers, and welcome to my first F1 blog of the 2012 season. So unfortunately I didn't get a preview out, and I was meant to do a run of the circuit, so I'm going to have to do a catch up at some point. So you're going to see my season preview, which is coming. It was a bit of a complex edit, and what I've been trying to do is get photos and videos that I can actually use on the channel, but using F1 footage on YouTube is a perilous task, especially if you're a YouTube partner. Well, I will endeavour to do so and bring you more and more coverage on F1, and not just in 2012 but 2013 and 14 as well, getting my passion across and my perspective, and I'm a fan, so I like to give my fans perspective, and some of you will share that and some of you won't, but I think that's all the beauty of YouTube in getting that across to people. The 2012 season is easily one of the most anticipated seasons in years. 6 world champions on the grid, much more even set of cars than we've been used to in a very, very long time. And with a testing which didn't really reveal any winners. Lots of people putting in good pace, and that's with bits on the cars, no bits on their cars, fuel weight we just can't guess basically, but a lot of them running heavy fuel. Of course, coming to qualifying for the Australian Grand Prix, it's very exciting. We want to see who's really got the speed. And it was interesting hearing Christian Horner reveal that the Red Bull hadn't previously been used with light fuel. They'd never done a light fuel test. So, of course, they've gone out there with light fuel and the car's not behaved exactly as they expected. So no doubt they'll have learnt a lot from that, and their qualifying pace will improve immeasurably by the next race in Malaysia. But it was an interesting surprise to also call out Ferrari. And again, compared to their race pace, their qualifying pace was very poor, and again it showed that perhaps they hadn't done the testing on low fuel they perhaps should have. So there was a lot of sandbagging going on, not wanting to reveal speed to other teams, and ultimately it harmed them slightly because they didn't have that data when it came to qualifying. But there's no doubt about it, the best looking car is also the fastest car, and that's McLaren. They've made good steps forward, they understand their car this year. A lot of input from both drivers, and they've come out with a really, really strong package, and qualifying proved that really just how strong that package was. No doubt there was more speed for both drivers in the car as well. So kicking off with the race then, obviously a good start from Jensen. Getting up alongside Lewis, it was critical that he got into turn 1 and got away if he was going to win. But what was remarkable was the speed he had in those first few laps. He pulled away from Lewis, and Lewis had no answer to that speed. It really just shows how Jensen has settled and he's won with the car this year. And he's always been good at the Australian circuit. He's always found the sweet spot. He's got in the zone on there, and he really pulled away, and it was a very strong run from him. Grosjean was very unlucky at the start, of course, just couldn't get away, and the same with Webber. Webber was lucky to get through turn 1, and it's a real shame because I'd love to see Webber win the Australian Grand Prix, but unfortunately it's just never to be. He's never had the luck there, but certainly his speed was fantastic. Michael Schumacher, wasn't it great to see him in a car now that can compete? For the last couple of years I've been making these blogs and saying don't write the guy off. He's a world champion material. Give him a car, he'll win races just like he did years ago, and he's proving as the car improves just how much quicker he's getting every time. The Mercedes performed well in qualifying, less well in the race, but certainly talking to the drivers afterwards, they seem very upbeat that they've identified the issues that have caused that, and they'll be stronger at future races. And there's no doubt that this diffuser device that they're using on the rear wing surely will provide benefits at Malaysia in a week's time. My experience of Ross Brawn is if he has a device that could be pretty good, he won't necessarily always show it off straight away. So the Australian Grand Prix, he knows that there's a chance of other teams, putting in complaints, everything else. He doesn't want that. He wants them to withdraw those, and then that way he can unleash its full power in Malaysia. We'll wait and see, but I think Mercedes haven't really shown their full hand yet, and I think you might see that in a week's time. Of course, it was a shame for Michael Schumacher to get the gearbox problems. He had Sebastian Vettel chasing him. And you can see Sebastian Vettel falling off turn 1. It was very uncharacteristic for him. So it shows how hard he was pushing, but how the car was losing a significant amount of downforce when it was following another car. So it's certainly interesting on board with him yesterday and seeing how he's learning the limits of that car like never before, and having to push that little bit harder. Of course, Button had built a huge lead, and with the pit stops as well, and the Perez getting in the way, over 10-second lead for Button. He was just unstoppable on the day. And of course, then we have the safety car incident. A little bit a strange one actually, when Vettel came out, and they didn't all feed out in order. I think it's a strange how that's organised. I'm sure a lot of people watching, I know how it happened and that the cars had to slow down and Vettel just happened to be close to the pits and that way he benefited from the safety car. But I really am under the opinion that when a safety car comes out, the positions should stay locked where they are, and it really sort of destabilised the event, no doubt about it. And that's not being biased to one driver or another. I've seen it before many times over the years, the way safety cars, I think Nelson Piquet came second at Hockenheim a few years ago to the safety car incident, and many people said, well, he shouldn't have been in second, but he benefited from it. I guess you could say that's racing, that's Formula One, and that's what a safety car can do, but there are times when it is strange how it works out. Either way though, obviously, Vettel then up to speed. Jensen pulled away. Another great restart for him. And then, of course, the race went from there. We had, of course, last lap mayhem, Pastor Maldonado incident. I forgot to mention earlier in the race, of course, him and Grosjean coming together. That was very unlucky for Grosjean, a little bit rude from Pastor, quite frankly. Sure, Grosjean should have slowed down, no doubt about it, but I really don't think Pastor gave him any room to move. He could have just pulled in a little bit, and I think that Grosjean could have got away with a tap and lost a couple of places rather than breaking his front suspension. But either way, pushing hard and losing it on the final lap, that was quite a heavy impact into a concrete wall. No doubt he's feeling it today. I tell you, he's probably got a headache and a bad neck, and he'll need a couple of days to recover from it. It'll be very sore over the next week. But these guys have physios, everything else. I'm sure he'll be fine for the Malaysian Grand Prix. And it's very positive for Williams, isn't it? The first time they've had a good car in some years. Really nice to see now and what the drivers can do. And of course then it was just down to a solid victory for Jenson Button there. He controlled the race. He did a fantastic lap, a couple of laps to go. And for him, another win, another Australia win. That's two wins for him in Australia. And certainly, that's his third actually. Third win in Australia, because he won 2009, 2010, and of course now 2012. So it's a great start for him in his championship, noting 2009 as he crossed the line. Seeing the guys on the podium, obviously Lewis Hamilton very unhappy, Lewis Hamilton. But for me, he's still not looked happy all weekend. I mean, when you look at him and Jensen in qualifying, it was like, he's qualified in first, but he's not happy. Whether he's not happy at McLaren, it seems to me there's a whole host of reasons. He's not happy within the team. It seems to be, that he feels that the team is behind Jensen rather than him. I don't know. Either way, he's not, showing that kind of Lewis Hamilton of old. He's certainly lost some of that sort of spark in his personality, and I just hope that as the season goes on, he gets that back. I think that he was... I mean, being down about being in third place, he wasn't quick enough to win the race. So second was the best he was going to manage based on his lap times. Sebastian Vettel squeezing in, that was unlucky. So third place was the best he could manage. His speed wasn't there on the day. And I think it kind of mystified him as to where that speed was. But I don't think he should worry too much about that. If there's one thing I've noticed in Formula One over the years, it's a driver can be fantastic in morning practice. They can be terrible in afternoon practice. And it's the same with qualifying and everything else. The car sometimes works and it sometimes doesn't. Sometimes tyres work and they don't. And I think you need a certain bit of philosophy about that, no matter which driver it is. Vettel very pleased. Red Bull much stronger in the race. They'll be stronger at Malaysia, no doubt, if they improve their qualifying pace. Ferrari, Ferrari I think need a lot of work. Massa is going to struggle to hold on to his drive unless he really sorts it out this year. He needs to sort it out. I mean, these guys are paid a lot of money to do well in races, and you can't just keep blaming the car because Alonso was a lot further up and putting in some really competitive lap times. It was only towards the end of the race where his tyres completely fell off. So the Ferrari just needs some little tweaks, clearly, and it can be right on the pace. I look forward to them getting in the mix, but I think they're going to struggle until the racing gets to Europe. So they've got a few races yet where they're going to have to maximise what they've got, and they really will need some extra bits on the car when they get to China to try and keep up that pressure to stay as close as they can. But let's hope Ferrari can tie that together, and that way they can get in the mix and get amongst it along with Mercedes. And I think Raikkonen's drive, fantastic from him. Coming all the way up, showing a really, really sort of racy pace, a few good overtakes, and that's what we want to see from Kimi. And I think just, again, a little bit more speed, a couple of tenths a lap is all Kimi needs to really get amongst it and go for the higher points and the podiums. It's all to play for this year. McLaren are super strong. Jensen feels super comfortable. You've got to look at it at that race and say that Jensen and Vettel are easily going to be battling for the championship this year. Webber, he's an unknown at the moment. He's certainly more comfortable on these tyres. He put in some phenomenal lap times. Again with Lewis, phenomenal lap times at times, but can he keep his tyres going? I think that's going to be his big question this year in some of the races. And lots of other competitors as well. You know, the midfield's really close. Sauber, both cars in the points. Fantastic to see. Toro Rosso battling there with both cars. John-Eric Verne, unlucky. Daniel Ricciardo, fantastic to see him getting in there at the end. Nice guy as well. And, you know, like you say, action right through the grid. I just think it's the guys at the back that really need to raise their game. HRT couldn't qualify. Not good enough. They really need work, they need testing, they need money, basically. The Marussia car is a long way off the pace. Timo Glock really deserves a much better drive than that. But overall, there's a lot to look forward to. It was a great fun race. I've watched it on BBC and Sky. Pluses and minuses on both coverage. I think Sky have got the whole thing of Anthony Davidson doing the touchpad thing. Great information from Anthony, but it all seems a bit staged. They've got this boring looking room. Georgie stands there with nothing to do and he explains it for 5 minutes. The BBC, great commentary, great presentation throughout, and for some reason they seem to get more interviews with people afterwards as well. But either way, I think both had their pros and cons, and I think Sky's going to take time to get into it, no doubt. There's a lot to organise there, and I do like hearing the input of Damon Hill. He always gives a nice little bit of detail to add, and it's completely the opposite of Martin Brundle, which is nice. Two drivers discussing it there. So that was it for the Australian Grand Prix then. Just a week then until Malaysia, and I will hope to get some more coverage up eventually, along with photos and everything else. But that's it from me for now, viewers. As ever, more soon.